Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of QuaranTEAtime with Celeste. Today is episode number 88 for June 19th, 2020. Now, many of us have just become aware of a holiday that is very special to be celebrated on June 19th, and I think it should be a federally recognized holiday. It is already recognized in over 45 states. I think about 47 states recognize this, but this holiday is called Juneteenth. Now, I've deferred to some professionals and some people that are more expertly aware about Juneteenth to talk about it with you. But today's episode is all about Juneteenth. And first, I want to start off with an essay from a professor of English from Bentley University. I am drinking tea, but we'll get to that later. Okay, so Barbara Paul Emile, a professor of English at Bentley University, writes, Juneteenth, an amalgamation of June 19th, is also known as Freedom Day and Jubilee Day. It commemorates the arrival of Major General Gordon Granger to Galveston, Texas on June 19, 1865, ahead of thousands of Union troops, where he read Federal Order Number 3, declaring that the war had ended and that all previously enslaved people were free. This is what he read. The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that of employer and hired labor. The freemen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. So it was definitely a proclamation of freedom, but there were some little hitches you might have noticed in there. Let me read more. I did edit her essay a little bit to just make it a little bit more concise. What is interesting about this announcement is that it was being made 2.5 years after Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which had become effective on January 1st, 1863. So here we are, June 19th, 1865. Several reasons for this late pronouncement have been offered. Things like we want to keep our free labor, whatever the reason, African Americans labored in slavery in Texas for 2.5 years after the national emancipation was declared. The general's announcements produced shock followed by jubilation on the part of the newly freed slaves. The freed men and women wanted to leave the plantations to escape from servitude, but they didn't know where to go. Indeed, they had nowhere to go. Some were shot and killed as they endeavored to head north. Others tried to escape to neighboring states, but at whatever cost, freedom had come and there was no looking back. At Juneteenth gatherings, attendance could run in the thousands. There was a range of festivities, fishing, barbecuing, baseball, and rodeos in the West. There was also a focus on self-improvement, and guest speakers were invited to present on the challenges facing African Americans. All of these activities were followed by prayer services, and savory dishes were offered in great abundance as everyone brought their best to the table. Okay. Over time, Juneteenth festivals waned as the pressure on Black lives increased under Jim Crow. Martin Luther King, however, planned his Poor People's March in the 60s to start on Juneteenth, and the marchers returned to their home states to revive this holiday. Today, 47 states recognize Juneteenth as a holiday. Everyone is invited to celebrate Juneteenth in the name of human freedom and in the memory of the 250,000 African Americans who achieved their freedom late, 2.5 years after the national proclamation. Juneteenth honors Black achievement and reminds us that no one is truly free until we are all free. Now, I have some other things I want to share with you. First of all, here's a quote from Lambert Oda, who lives he was a Houston native. He lives in New York City. He said, "This year, I particularly think Juneteenth is important with everything that's going on," Oda says. Black people have been the backbone of this country for too long, and we have also been conditioned to not celebrate our successes. Juneteenth can be our day outside of Black History Month to really celebrate how far we have come and recognize the current work that needs to be done. How to celebrate Juneteenth? To celebrate Juneteenth, Black communities across the country usually commemorate the Day of Freedom through parades, festivals, barbecues, prayers, and fellowship. COVID-19 has affected some Juneteenth events, but some events are still scheduled. Red food is traditionally served at Juneteenth celebrations because the color is the representation of bloodshed and the resilience of the enslaved. Red velvet cake, watermelon, Texas Pete hot sauce, strawberry pie, and hot links are several red foods commonly served at Juneteenth celebrations, according to the New York Times article, Hot Links and Red Drinks, the Rich Food Tradition of Juneteenth. So today, I am just having some Watermelon Wonder GT's kombucha. It's red. They mentioned watermelon. I love kombucha. So there we go. I get the Watermelon Wonder all the time. So, as you can see, I am not a black person, right? And I know that many of you that watch are not black also. So the next question that I had was, how do white people or non-black people celebrate Juneteenth? How do we support? What can we do to show our solidarity with the black community? And a list came up. Juneteenth for White People by Guimel Carvalho, Director of People and Culture, and Amy Hogarth, Director of Recruitment and Inclusion at the Wayside Youth and Family Support Network of Framingham, Massachusetts, offered this list of 10 things you can do as a non-black person for Juneteenth. 10 things we want white people to do to celebrate Juneteenth. 1. We want white people to deeply consider the wound of racism on the hearts of every black American. 2. On Juneteenth, we want white people to read, study black history, black poets, black leaders, and black achievements. Now, one thing that I've been doing to get more educated is I bought my Black History flashcards. I have the flashcards and I also have the trivia game. Trivia game. These are from urbanintellectuals.com, and if anybody wants to get a discount on these, you can order at urbanintellectuals.com, and then you can use this coupon 15card53 to get a 15% discount. So there you go. That's one way to educate yourself. I've also been watching a ton of documentaries and reading a lot. So those are some of the things you can do. Number 3, we want white people to do things about racism as readily as they would do things for their own children. 4, we want white people to make a list of resolutions, of promises, of vows about what it will take for them to use their power, their privilege, their platforms of power to give space to black and brown leaders. Definitely. 5, we want them to find an accountability partner and make the list public of what actions they will take. They can do this on social media. A lot of those actions will be giving up privilege and making room for folks who they may not have noticed have no room at all. 6, we want white people to stop talking about how uncomfortable it is to talk about racism or police violence. Does your comfort matter more than these things? I don't think so. 7, we want white people to stop being afraid of their own internalized white supremacy. I want them to search and look within at hard facts of thought and deed. Who cares about being comfortable? What about being true, brave, and real instead? 8, then we want white people to stop talking and listen to what needs to be done. Listening is important. I see a lot of my white friends that like to tell other people what they think should be done, but we need to be listening to the black folks as to what they want to be done. And I think listening is one of the most important things that we can do as a culture for anybody. If we want to understand, you got to listen. Okay? 9, we want white people to plan on spending time in spaces with folks who are not like you. Okay, try that. 10, we want white people to hold other white people accountable, not on social media, instead with measured voices that call folks in to look and wrestle to change. We are interested in courageous conversations, in hearing folks out and in allowing themselves to feel terrible and to let that feeling be a crucible for change. I think that's excellent. So those are the 10 ways that you can celebrate Juneteenth as a white person. So I have a couple quotes to end with this today. Every year we must remind successive generations that this event triggered a series of events that one by one defines the challenges and responsibilities of successive generations. That's why we need this holiday. That was by Al Edwards. And finally, a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. If the cruelties of slavery could not stop us, the opposition we now face will surely fail. Because the goal of America is freedom. Be abused and scorned though we may be, our destiny is tied up with America's destiny. So those are my quotes. That's my Juneteenth special. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. This was the most important thing about today. There is no other birthdays, other national days that are being celebrated are not nearly as important. So go forward, celebrate, maybe have some red foods and barbecue, but the food is not the most important thing. Remember this list of 10 things. And I can post a link if anybody wants to find out where that list is to be found. And then again, if you guys want to get the Black History cards to do some education, and Hulu, Amazon Prime, Netflix, they all have amazing documentaries, docudramas, even movies based on true stories about Black history. So I encourage you guys to just get yourself educated, because you know what? We weren't educated about this in public schools. They don't educate this stuff about any of this in public schools. We knew Martin Luther King Jr., we knew Malcolm X, we knew there was a civil rights movement, but beyond that, it wasn't taught. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, brown, Asian, nobody was taught all of this stuff. So you have to go out and make a concerted effort to educate yourself, okay? So that's what this is all about. Thank you again. This is Celeste Barbier. This is my 88th episode of QuaranTEAtime. I will see you tomorrow, Saturday, for my 89th episode. And then we've got Father's Day on Sunday for my 90th episode. Isn't that crazy? All right, you guys. So have a fabulous rest of your day. Happy Juneteenth.